Is that light bothering you from the camera?
I don't know what I'm going to say anyway. So.
Okay. So I wondered if you could tell me a bit about some of your earliest experiences with music growing up, bands you liked, if you saw anyone in concert. If you could just talk about your musical interests as a young person.
Well, I remember the very first record that I bought. It was a 45, which is a smaller record, and they cost like 49 cents or something like that. So we walked to the bus and took the bus downtown to Yonkers basement is where the records were, and I picked out the record and brought it home and must have played it 50 times. It was a record I heard on the radio. They only played like 40 records at a time, 40 songs at a time on the radio, so you knew all the songs. There wasn't such a wide variety of songs. And so I think I may still have that record to this day.
What record was it?
It was called I Fought the Law and the Law Won, which really the topic and the words didn't matter. I think I just liked the tune, and I think I was maybe in fifth grade. Maybe that's when we could start taking the bus, 5th or 6th grade, that we could go by ourselves to the bus stop, take a bus downtown, come back. So.
Do you remember who the band was or who the singer was? Oh. Or is it just like a one-hit wonder?
Probably a one-hit wonder. I could sing it for you now, but I won't. It wasn't a group that I liked later, or the singer wasn't one that I liked later, but for some reason I just remembered the name of it, so I went to get that. My older sister had some other records that she liked, so I knew she had bought records before, but that was the first one I bought. That is a specific memory. The first group I saw was at the, there was a band that came to the ice arena. When I remember that because I sewed a dress with a sewing machine. I sewed a dress to wear to the concert that was white eyelet, little shift, and so I thought I was looking pretty good. That was maybe when I was in 7th grade with some girlfriends, and there were a lot of Boulder kids there, so that was pretty fun.
Who'd you see?
That is a good question, and I should know that. So if we record this, I would remember that. Isn't the association? It was, I'd have to think about that. First really big band I saw was the Animals, and that was at the big arena downtown in Des Moines, and went with a friend, and that was, they were a British band, and it was amazing to be able to see that in Des Moines.
Did you ever see the Beatles?
I never was able to see the Beatles. I was quite a Beatle fan. Didn't see them in person. I've seen Paul in person, but that was way after the Beatles. However, I do recall that a girl in my class got to go to Chicago to see them, and a friend of mine in Kansas City got to see them in Chicago, which was about the only Midwestern show they had on their first tour. But I was quite a Beatles fan. Saw them on Ed Sullivan the first time they ever played there, and had little notebooks of, I think I would have been called a Beatlemaniac. I had a Beatle wig. I had a note. I would buy Beatle magazines. I had Beatle, what are those called? Those cards called?
Trading cards?
Trading cards. I think I may still have that too. I may have a scrapbook I made of things I cut out of magazines about the Beatles. And so my favorite was John, but my best friend Becky, her favorite was Paul. So we did talk about that endlessly and which one was better. We knew all the words to all the songs of their first records. They just had a different sound, and it was quite exciting. My mom liked them and my dad didn't like them at all.
You mentioned that you made your own dress to go to your first concert. Was it common for you to make your own clothes?
Yes. I didn't make all my own clothes, but yes, it was something that I grew up knowing, learning how to do, and my friends did that too. We made up our own patterns, and we also just could sew from a pattern, but we just spent a lot of time with material and, um, you know, experimenting and sewing different things, learned how to sew with a sewing machine. So yes, once you learned how to do it, you could make yourself 10 dresses in 2 days, and you had a lot of variety in your clothing. So it was a good way to expand your wardrobe. We couldn't really afford to go buy all new clothes all the time.
Did you have a dress code at high school or at school?
Yes, at the period of time when I was in school, through my 11th grade year, there was a dress code that you could only wear skirts or dresses. You could not wear any kind of pants or jeans, which was funny to us because the skirts were so short that any kind of pants would have covered you, would have been more modest than the skirts we wore. When I was a senior in high school, it was a big change because you could wear what was called a pantsuit. So there was again a very strict thing for what girls could wear. You could wear pants only if they matched the top that you were wearing. And it wasn't until I went to college that I could wear jeans during the day to class. So that I look back on that and think that was kind of strange, especially when I'd see how short the skirts were, because the dress code being skirts was not a way to, it didn't have anything to do with modesty. So yes, it was quite a big lot of change right about then.
History books now talk about different movements, like the civil rights movement or the anti-Vietnam War movement, or just kind of the reemergence of feminism. Do you feel like you were, like your daily life was, impacted by those at all, or not really?
Well, I'm old enough. I'm 65, and I'm old enough that when I look back, it's interesting to look back because, for instance, when I was a sixth grader, I was the fastest runner in my class, and that person was supposed to go to the Drake relays and be able to run in the elementary school heats, but you couldn't go unless you were male. Females couldn't go, so no girls could go. And so the person that was the second fastest runner in my class got to go because he was a boy. And I think the thing that's strange about that is that it didn't really make me that mad, as I recall, and I didn't think it was that strange, and that would never happen now. So I think I grew up in kind of a sheltered, different time, and I'm glad that my kids didn't have to deal with things like that. We didn't have any girls basketball teams or softball or volleyball, so girls didn't play sports, and I don't think I wasn't on the edge of any of that. Same with Vietnam. Some of the fashions and music, I think, of that era affected things that I liked, but was very sheltered from all that was going on, really.
I remember you had a bracelet that said ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. I know that was quite a bit later when you were an adult, but were you involved with that at all?
I did buy several pieces of jewelry that were about the Equal Rights Amendment, and I was supportive of that, but not what I would call involved in terms of working toward the passage of that. I just assumed it would, and then was kind of stunned and annoyed when it didn't pass. And looking back, such a long time ago now, and I just think, oh, why, if that would have passed, maybe things would be a little bit different now, but we're still working on the same kinds of issues. But I got the jewelry. I can't say that I was one of the...
I think I lost it. I had the bracelet most recently.
Oh, yeah.
In undergrad, and I think I lost it. But yeah. I liked wearing it.
Yeah, it was a great effort. There's a whole effort called Beyond War. I don't think people remember now. Or I did work with that. Would do office work and go help with whatever needed to be done. That was a volunteer kind of a group that was trying to just demonstrate. This was in the 80s, and demonstrate how there were so many more nuclear weapons than could possibly be needed to destroy everything on Earth. And they were, it was a grassroots kind of thing. That was one grassroots sort of movement that I was a part of.
I wondered if you could talk a bit about your first job.
Oh, I was, my first job for pay, where I wasn't just helping around the house, was babysitting. And this would have been back in the 50s, early 60s, and I was paid 35 cents an hour to babysit, no matter how many kids there were. And I was expected to fold the laundry, clean up the dishes, do some housework as well. So I didn't really spend the time playing with the kids. It was more a mother's helper kind of thing, but the parent wasn't home. So 35 cents an hour. So you had to work quite a few hours to get any kind of money, but it was exciting. And that was maybe when I was 10 or 11. And when you babysat at night, you got a little bit more money. My first job where I got a paycheck that would be where I was employed by business would have been at a fabric store, the Roosevelt Fabric Shop, and I don't remember the pay. It was maybe $1 something, and I would go after school or on Saturdays, and they just trained me how to work there, what to do, and so those were my first jobs.
Do you remember? So this kind of was what you spent your hard-earned money on?
Yes, and I just remembered another first job of teaching swimming lessons, which also didn't pay very well, but that was a good summer job. I don't remember really what I spent my money on. It wasn't very much, probably records, because they didn't cost very much, and you get quite a few. So I remember trying to develop a record collection, and then I tried to save my money. I did save my money toward buying a banjo, which was what I decided I wanted to learn how to play. I'd never played one, but everybody else was playing guitar, and I just thought, I'm going to play the banjo. So the fun part of it was to make a giant banjo that on a poster board on my door, and then it was like a thermometer, and I would be like adding up my money with this thermometer up the neck of the banjo, and then I got to get a banjo when I got enough money.
So banjos, like you said, everyone else was getting guitars, so you were trying to be a little alternative.
Yeah.
Was there like a banjo inspiration that you had?
It was just like folk singers that banjo wasn't very common. It was pretty corny, but there were some folk singer groups that had a banjo with a couple of guitars, and there was a fella down the street that was in maybe high school, and he knew how to play the banjo, and so I think that's how I had to take some lessons. So I think that's how we got a hold of the name of somebody. So I think I really didn't know anything about the banjo except why not. But it wasn't a very popular instrument, although it had its little niche. So then I was in a combo, which is what we call groups, in 9th grade. 2 banjos. This other guy copied me and got a banjo. 2 banjos and 2 guitars, and we played at our school's, what do you call those things when you... Assemblies. Show? Well, it was like assemblies, and I don't remember what we played. And then we played at the Veterans Hospital, and just wherever anybody would let us play for free.
What songs did you play? Do you remember?
Well, we had several that basically the ones that I could. It was easier to play on a guitar, so we played the MTA song. We played what's that song? That's a famous banjo song. Foggy Mountain Breakdown, which I possibly could still play if I got out the banjo, which is under my bed right now and has a broken string. And after that, I can't remember. I probably some that the other people in the band knew how to play. was fun.